Hey, everybody in Crushing It 2021 Bill. Okay, so this is actually day 8, and let me catch you up where we've been. I actually didn't write a whole lot about today because I think the conversation that we're gonna have today is pretty self-explanatory. And I just did a live video on our Facebook group, and I'm gonna go put that in between here so that anybody who just wants an update and a quick catch up can also watch there. But I just kind of went through what I've learned and what kind of breakthroughs I've had from going through my challenge this last week. But here's what I want to talk to you about. I remember hearing once somebody say, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I didn't get that at first, but I really spent some time thinking on it. And I realized that it's true because if you make a compromise in one area of your life, that's actually who you are, because you only equal up to your lowest common denominator. So even if you have a high value or something in something over here, but you're willing to compromise over here, that's actually who you are, right? Does that make sense? You're not this person just because you have a high value or high ideals in one area. It isn't who you are, because your values have to match across the board. So if you're willing to tell an off-color joke but you don't like gossip, you're still at off color. Like, that's your lowest common denominator. And I feel like this rolls over into every area of our life. So, and it's about compromise versus being non-negotiable, right? So understanding your values, who you are, but your values have to be who you are all the time. So that's where this comes in. So my question to you is, who are you when nobody's looking? Because I think, especially out here in, I hear in influencer world nowadays, there's a lot of people or information teaching, people who are success coaches and things like that. There's a lot of people who can talk the talk, but don't walk their talk. And even more importantly, I think that if we're not being absolutely true to the core of our values and who we are, and true to our word and showing up as that person, and to me, this means even being true to your word to yourself, then that shows. People know who you are. Even if you're saying one thing, even if it looks like you're doing one thing, people know who you are, because energetically, you're not being true to yourself. You're not being true to your values, and it shows up. So, what are you doing when nobody's looking? Are you living up to your ideals and values? Are you practicing what you preach? Are you doing what you say you're going to do? Are you making promises even to yourself that you keep? Are you following through? Are you keeping your commitments? I'm trying to think of what else there might be that would be. I think one of the big things is keeping even your promises to yourself, because it also occurred to me, if I'm not willing to keep my promises to even just me, why would I keep my promises to anybody else? And maybe I will, but is the value behind it good, or is it just because it's fear of how I'm going to look? That's not a true value system, right? So if I make a promise to myself, that's a promise that's a priority to me. A promise to my family, that's a priority to me. We tend to keep promises or our word to strangers because we're afraid of how we're going to look to people, and they're not even the people that really matter. We matter the most. The people that are closest to us matter most. Keeping our values matters most. So I want to ask you, and this is your homework assignment: who are you when no one's looking? Are you true to yourself? Are you true to your values? Do you keep your word and promises even to yourself, most importantly? If you say, tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up at such and such time, do you do it? And if you don't do it, do you course correct? Do you course correct, and do you not beat yourself up in course correction? That's going to be a conversation for another day, because I want you guys to look at the bigger picture here. If you're showing up to this conversation, if you're watching these videos, if you're showing up and reading the posts, if you're engaging on any level, but even if you're just lurking right now, you're part of the conversation that's going to help propel you and move you forward. That's progress. But progress has to progress. So you can't just stay right there. You've got to constantly be working to move forward. I go back to the analogy of somebody who finally quit smoking, like, I don't know, 20 times. It's a ridiculous amount. It's a lot of times to quit smoking before they quit for good. So as long as you are constantly in the conversation, working towards moving forward, taking steps, even when you fall back or fall off course, course correcting and keep going forward, then you're making progress. But that's a big conversation for another day. I just wanted to throw that in there. So who are you being when nobody's looking? Are you true to your word, even your word to yourself? And do you course correct when not? So you guys, I'd love to hear some feedback for you. What does that mean to you? Being the same person all the time. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Who are you when no one's looking? What are your thoughts and comments around this? What does this look like to you? Give me some examples of where this has shown up in your world, where you realize, ooh, that didn't feel quite right. That's not in alignment with my values. And do you understand how your core, that the lowest common denominator is who you actually are? And do you need to look in your life somewhere and raise that? So I'd really love to hear from you guys. Give me some feedback. Tell me what your thoughts are. Tell me where you are, where you've seen yourself in these areas. Thank you so much for being here, crushing it 2021. Keep crushing it. Mwah. Good night or goodbye.